So for anybody who's listening and doesn't quite understand the story of Final Fantasy X and the lore behind it, I kind of went in and dove deep into the lore. So if you want to hear me ramble while the endings go on, it's fine. This all started 3,000 years ago. Not 1,000 years, 3,000 years. 3,000 years ago, magic was the powerhouse of everything in Spira, Zanarkand, Bavel, the whole thing. But then a race came across, I don't remember the pronunciation behind the race's name, but it will later become known as the Albed. This race created Machina, powered machines, that later on, after thousands of years, would become more powerful than magic, more usable than magic. And to give more context of magic, magic was only usable by certain people. Select people who just were gifted in magic. Summoners, black mages, white mages. And they were kind of the hierarchy of the population. If you had magic, you had power. If you didn't have magic, you were a farmer. You were low class. But with machines, Machina, my controller dying, now everybody had the power to create fire for their fireplaces. Now everybody had the power to put lights in the streets. They didn't have to bow down to a magic. So now there's a whole lot more involved that goes from the 3,000 years to the 1,000 years, but I'm gonna skip all that. We're just gonna hit 1,000 years ago. There was a war between Bavel and Zanarkand. The reason for this war was Bavel was afraid of the summoners, how powerful they had become. They both had summoners. Don't get me wrong, Bavel, while being a Machina city, had magic. Zanarkand, being more of a magical base, also had machines. But their summoners were far more potent, powerful. So during this war, Zanarkand had already knew they were gonna lose. Machines outpower magic 100 to 1. And not only that, Bavel had way more of an army backing them than Zanarkand did. So when we got to the Calmlands and we talked to the old man about the story of the Calmlands, that there was a great battle here between both the cities, that's where Zanarkand lost. But Zanarkand was not destroyed yet. They lost the war. This is when the survivors, the last of the Zanarkand people, became faith. And that's what that wall was, that wall of people. They became faith. So that they could create a new Zanarkand. A Zanarkand of Dreams. This is a physical place on the map that you can't go to, of course, that's believed to be somewhere around the Baj Temple, which is where Adama is, if you know where that is. If you don't worry about it. It's an island that can't be accessed in the game and was never be able to be accessed by any of the people of Spira since their technology was so low. And in so doing, it was Yu Yevon who used the faith to summon the city, but he also used the Pyreflies, because summoners can use Pyreflies to create what I would consider life. I believe that Pyreflies in themselves are the basis of all life. There's no backing to that. Nobody really knows what the heck Pyreflies really are. But he used the Pyreflies to create the shell that was Sin. I'll pause for a moment. So he used the Pyreflies to create the shell of Sin, which you saw at the end, all those Pyreflies just burst out of him. That was just the shell. Yu Yevon had a daughter, Yunalesca. Yunalesca was Yu Yevon's daughter, and her husband, Lord Zaon, found a way to defeat Sin, believing that they could get rid of Sin for good. They didn't know what would happen next. So she took her husband, made him into a faith, knowing that their bond would be strong, and defeated Sin for the first time. This is when Yu Yevon, having lost control of Sin. Oh man, I'm not doing this right. I forgot about one part. During all of this, Yu Yevon lost control of the power of Sin when he created Sin. He gave Sin a set of rules: destroy all Machina, destroy any Machina, destroy any incoming force, and destroy heavily populated areas, and keep New Zanarkand safe. This would ensure New Zanarkand to be safe. But he lost himself and became pretty much a programmed soul that just summons Sin and keeps New Zanarkand going. So Yunalesca uses her husband to defeat Sin for the first time. This is when Yunalesca figures out that her father, Yu Yevon, can take over the final summoning, can take over any summoning. And while in the English translation they stated that it would change the final Aeon into Sin, that is not correct. Yu Yevon would instead take the final Aeon, run away, go off, hide somewhere, probably deep in the ocean where nobody could find it, and rebuild Sin around the Aeon with Pyreflies. And the final summoning, this soul behind it, like Jecht, had some say in what this being did and did not do. It's kind of my belief that once Jecht had become Sin and there was an inkling of Sin available, he went to New Xanarkand and picked up his son. He wasn't even full Sin at that time because all he was a big ball of water, right? Probably protecting it while it was in its infancy. It wasn't even full big whale Sin yet. Took his son. Okay. And then we begin with this story, but I still want to go back to 1,000 years. So, 1,000 years ago, Yunalesca did her thing. You know about Sin, you know about how he's created. Something you might not have known is Maester Micah. Maester Micah was over 1,000 years old. And he was a leader of Bavel. At some point, somewhere, he met with Yunalesca, and they created the Yevon faith. With the simple rules of no use of Machina, keep populations at a low, and the pilgrimage for the final Aeon. The one thing they kept a secret about the pilgrimage is the sacrifice of a guardian. Not the sacrifice of the summoner. That was well known and really couldn't be hidden. So, as far as the lore goes, that's the basics and the baseline of this whole thing. So really, the war never really ended until Sin was defeated. And it's poetic that Sin was defeated at Bavel. I think that covers most of the baseline story. I mean, there's a lot of other little tidbits of lore hidden around all over the place about summonings and the differences and stuff like that. Okay, so I guess one more thing would be, what is the difference between Jecht, Tidus, and, say, a summoning? The only thing we ever had to go on with this, as far as lore goes, is they were touched by Sin. Sin is made up of Pyreflies, so my only assumption is the Pyreflies literally gave him an inkling of real life. Gave both of them. They were both touched by Sin. That's the only thing we had to go on with it, is that's the difference between them being a regular, just dreamt up person versus a real person. Or an Aeon. That they became more than just a dream. So, there are my thoughts on it. This is the ending of the game. Thank you all for watching. This was fun. I may play X2, I don't know. Because I've tried it multiple times. I hate it. It has a lot of the backstory